Javier, I get out the old Saudi chart, our Arab light, I adjust it for inflation, and we're really getting back to the sustained higher prices that we saw inflation adjusted in the 70s and the 80s. How important now is the sustained price over of being above $100 a barrel for a long time?
I think it's very important. Sometimes we focus on what is the peak price during a crisis, but we don't really remember how long prices were above a particular level. I think that right now the really important thing for the global economy is not just how high oil prices go, but how long they stay sustainable. $120 a barrel. It's putting a lot of inflation into the system, and it's also one thing to for many industrialists. And I have spent the last few days quite a lot of time speaking to CEOs of big industrial companies in Europe. They have penciled a few months of high prices. They thought that this was similar to 2008, a big rally, and then prices were coming down. But they were not expecting very long, sustained prices that we are seeing right now. It's just already 6 months of high prices, and nothing really indicates that the next 6 months are not going to be anything but similar.
The frost date across Europe, across the United Kingdom, with the energy prices they are, it beckons. It's out there somewhere, depending on the latitude, the longitude. Help us out, Javier. Are they going to have enough energy when they get to the first frost date?
I really think that if we have a full shutdown of Russian gas supplies, Europe is going to struggle this winter. I don't think that CEOs, I think that the CEOs actually are getting more prepared than policymakers for what potentially is coming. And I don't think the policymakers had yet really told the population how bad it could get if Russia shuts down gas supplies to Europe, particularly to places like Germany, through the winter. It will not be enough gas, and we will have to decide what we are shutting down. But the whole economy cannot stay open if Russia shuts down completely gas supplies over the winter.
Javier, we've been talking about this for months, and the story has been similar, and the fears have been similar, and yet we're seeing a shift in the narrative if you look at the price. And we've had 2 consecutive weeks of declines in oil prices, the first time that we've seen that going back to April. How much is this actually matched with something on the ground in terms of a pullback in demand?
Well, when you look at particularly the oil market, and you look at the physical market, actual barrels traded, what you see there is a market that is super tight, with prices going up, with differentials climbing and climbing, and price spreads also going stronger. When you look at the futures market, it's really pricing this scenario of recession, and prices are coming down, as you say, over the last 2 weeks. One of those 2 markets is wrong. Either the physical market is really misreading the demand side, or the futures market is really anticipating perhaps too much of a recession. I tend to think that it is really the physical market which is getting it right, and prices in the futures market, Brent and WTI, are just going to come up in the next few days.
Javier, I wanted to finish on something that you touched on a couple of times in this conversation, and it's the difference between demand destruction and demand construction. And that's a phrase that you've used over the last few weeks, because the policy initiatives that we've heard from many governments around the world right now seem to support demand and don't really level with the public about what might be coming in Europe later this year. That seems to be a big issue for you. What do you think they need to do right now?
Well, I thought it was a very interesting opinion article by the 3 CEOs of the largest French energy companies, Total, Engie, and EDF, over the weekend in the French media. They urge demand savings, and they urge demand savings on energy right now, not over the winter. I would like to see European politicians and American politicians making exactly the same message. We do need to save energy right now, because in a worst case scenario, with Russia shutting down, we do not have enough natural gas and oil to make through the winter. We cannot wait until the crisis hits us to take measures. The measures need to be taken now in summer when it's easier.
Javier Blas, thank you, sir.